In this video, we're talking about the rumored alliance between Xbox and Steam and why I don't think it's real. Then we're going to talk about how your favorite emulators just got an upgrade on the Steam Deck. And finally, there's a few new games out that you should definitely try on your Steam Deck. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. And in my last video, when I thanked you guys for all the love on the latest videos, it's the biggest video I've had in a while. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. I hope you've been having a good time playing some games on your Steam Deck. A lot of people commented that they're going to pick up Sulfur. I'm still deeply addicted to this game, so I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. If you did pick it up, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. But yeah, I'm fired up about this Xbox news because there's just so much misunderstanding of what's actually happening here going on that I gotta clear it up. So by now, I'm sure you saw the news that there was a leaked screenshot that showed all of the different Xbox devices. There's a screenshot on the screen that says reaching 1 billion gamers. And then if you look closely, it's like the new Xbox app that they're working on for Windows, and there's a Steam tab. So it's like all your installed games from all the different sources. So there's probably going to be an Epic Game Store tab, an Xbox tab, a Steam tab, a GOG tab, and everything else. Now, immediately, a lot of people were like, oh, this is the new Xbox interface. They're going to update the Xbox Series X and S and have it play Steam games. It's going to be awesome. That is not what's happening. They're just going to update the Xbox app on PC, and it's going to be able to scan your hard drive and show you games from other storefronts, just like Steam does. If you want to add games to Steam that aren't from Steam, you just go to add game to Steam in the bottom left corner, click that, find it on your SSD, then you can add it. It's like how Emudeck works, where you use Steam ROM Manager to find all of your emulated games. It adds them as non-Steam games, and then you can find your own custom art for them and make them look and behave like Steam games. So it's like they're catching up to Steam with a feature that Steam has had for a decade at this point. I want to say, I don't even know how long, because it's been there so long that I never even knew it showed up. And I never knew a time where you couldn't add games from other services to Steam. That's how long the feature has been there. Clearly what they're building towards is what we've been talking about for the past few months, which is turning the next Xbox into a big Steam Deck, essentially, but using Windows instead of Steam OS. So it's like the polar opposite of what Valve is doing. They want to get to a point where you can play Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One games natively on PC just by emulating them with a different version of Proton. Whatever Microsoft cooks up, whatever name they come up with for it, it's just going to be Proton for Windows working in the reverse. Well, not really the reverse. It's going to be Proton for Windows working towards emulating Xbox games instead of like Linux emulating Windows games. And I think that's a decent strategy. I just don't think it's going to compete with Valve in any way, just because they have such a strong foothold in the PC gaming ecosystem. I just saw a news story about Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's selling really well, which is good because Ubisoft will stick around a little bit longer if it sells well enough. 27% of those sales came from PC, and most of the people who bought it on PC were on Steam, which is pretty noteworthy considering you could pay $15 for a month of Ubisoft Plus and just play the game to see if you like it before diving in and buying it. I mean, it's only 50 hours or so long, so you could probably beat it in that $15 a month trial period and then move on if you didn't really love it enough to go buy it yourself. As someone who has a PlayStation channel and a Steam Deck channel, I wish Microsoft could just do their own thing for once instead of coming into a space where there's already a built out competitive ecosystem, like, you know, Sony versus Nintendo and Sega back in the day. Then Sega went away and Xbox came in and filled their third place, and then just disrupted things by charging for online service, inventing things like Game Pass, which completely ruined PlayStation Plus and increased the price a lot because Sony had to pay for licensing deals to get these games on their game library somehow. And then when they still lost after all that because they didn't develop great first-party games, which has always been the key to succeeding in the console ecosystem, they looked at Steam and said, oh, we should try that. We're not going to look at how big of a failure Epic Game Store was, even though they give out free games all the time and they're really good games. We're just going to completely ignore that. We're just going to do the exact same thing that Valve is doing, but for Xbox instead of Steam games. And I don't get it. Like, what is the goal here? Just to use your money, your infinite wealth that you have as Microsoft, to just come in, kick around everything, mess up the entire ecosystem, and then leave when you lose? Like, it just bugs me. I know people love Xbox. I know a lot of people love Game Pass because it is a legitimately good value. When they do release great games like Indiana Jones, for example, it's nice to have a Game Pass subscription to play those games. But like, the effects of what they do in this industry last a lot longer than they even do in the spaces where they cause these effects to happen. Like, they're completely done competing with PlayStation. They're just releasing their games on PS5, and now I'm just scared of what they're going to do on the PC side of the fence, because I have years of dealing with this stuff on console and it just bums me out. It's like I run away and they somehow find me and make things a little bit worse and just a little bit more annoying. There was also an interesting conversation I just had on PS Ready about this, where people were like, oh, Spider-Man 2 is going to be on the next Xbox console. There's no way Sony can block these Steam games from being played. And I was like, oh guys, you don't even know. We've been talking about this for a long time over here on Deck Ready, where, all you have to do is add a version of anti-cheat that doesn't work on the Steam Deck, and bam, GTA Online doesn't work. All you have to do is cause PlayStation Network login to be mandatory in Ghost of Tsushima's multiplayer mode. Bam, you just get the single player, not the multiplayer. Battlefield 1, it's worked for years on the Steam Deck, and now suddenly, because EA snapped their fingers and then threw in the anti-cheat, it doesn't work anymore. GeForce Now, there are tons of games that don't work on GeForce Now, even though you're just playing your games through Steam. So like, I just came up with an example of how Sony could block these games. All they're going to have to do is say, oh, Xbox is using this one AMD chip for all of its new consoles, which are just PCs with the flavor of Windows running on top of them. Block that chip from accessing our game. Even if they don't do it through Steam, I'm sure they'll be able to bake something into their EXEs to block Xbox consoles from accessing their games. Like, it's not as difficult as everyone's making it seem, because developers find time to do it on the Steam Deck constantly. And people are like, oh, Sony's not going to put in that effort. Yeah, they will. They don't want games like Lego Horizon Adventures, which is on PC, PS5, and Switch. The best candidate for a game that could be on every platform. The one platform it's missing on is the Xbox platform. And also Death Stranding, that game came out on Xbox 5 years to the second that it released on PlayStation. They did not get to announce it. Sony made them wait until that 5-year period they signed a contract for was up before they could even announce the game was in development. They announced the iPhone version before they announced the Xbox version was even a thing. So Sony clearly has it out for Xbox. I think they'll figure out some way to block their game on Steam. And people are making it look like there's some alliance forming between Valve and Microsoft. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Steam would really go out of their way to block Xbox from making an app that just scans your hard drive, especially if you're gaming on a Windows PC. It's not like a third-party thing. It's like a first-party feature of Windows that'll just put all your games. It already does that with all those bloatware games that are installed on your PC when you first turn it on, like Solitaire and Uno. I think Bejeweled was one of them for a while. Like those populate in your Xbox app whether you want them to or not. So it's just them expanding that service to include your Epic Store games and include your Steam games. But the funny thing is, up until recently, you couldn't add Xbox games to Steam as non-Steam games because they locked them in weird folders. They don't use EXEs. Like if you want to add Gears of War Ultimate Edition, you have to buy a Windows Store app for a couple of dollars that'll find it on your SSD and try to add it, but half the time that doesn't work. And whenever Steam gets updated, it removes that game. So like Microsoft's already blocking it on Steam. I think Sony will be able to figure out a way to block Xbox. It's just like frustrating at the end of the day. So I've seen these news stories saying that, oh, this is going to be amazing. They're going to like form some alliance and they're going to have Steam games on the next Xbox. Yeah, they will, because it's going to be a PC. It's going to be able to install Steam, and then they're just going to scan your SSD for an app. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm frequently wrong, as you guys know. 3 videos a week. I'm bound to be wrong sometimes, but in this case, I'm feeling pretty confident. But yeah, let's talk about this second news story here, which is a great upgrade for Emudeck, which has to do with help when you're installing games. So when you install these emulators through the one-click solution that is Emudeck, they can't install the BIOS for you because I guess that's illegal. So you have to go out of your way to find the BIOS for all the different consoles. And the annoying thing is, depending on what emulator you're using, some of them want the BIOS in one BIOS folder, some of them want them in the root of the actual emulator, and it is kind of a pain point getting that set up. So the old solution Emudeck had was like a little link in the software that would take you to a wiki that is very helpful. Like if you want to learn all the different button commands for the different emulators, all that stuff is there. But trying to figure out the BIOS stuff on this tiny screen on the Steam Deck when you don't have a keyboard and mouse and you've got the BIOS and you don't know where to put them, it's a little bit frustrating. So what they've done is they've added a dedicated help section to the actual app, which I know people are going to say, oh, that's not even that big of a deal. I think it is a kind of a big deal because it just makes it simpler to use and it lowers a barrier of entry for people who are coming to the Steam Deck from the console world and treating this as baby's first PC. They've also added a lot of different emulators, a lot of the more niche emulators that like power users are using. So when you're playing a specific game from a specific console, you'll have more selection of what emulator you're actually using. And that comes in really handy. I did it with one of the Need for Speed games before I found the Abandonware thread. I saw comments also asking where that abandonware thread is. Like if I was doing it, I would just Google Need for Speed abandonware Reddit, and then it would probably be the first link. I don't know. I've never done it, but that's how I would do it. Anyway, I had to change the emulator for a couple of those games before I got the PC versions of them. So that is a noteworthy feature. It's just nice to see Emudeck continuing to get upgrades. But right at the end of the changelog, they also said that they're working on a custom launcher. So it's going to be a nice laid out user interface that's going to show all of your different games from different consoles. It sounds a lot like RetroArch or Emulation Station, but like through Emudeck. If you could add that to Steam as its own game and then open up like an arcade app, I think that would be pretty cool at the end of the day. But yeah, this is like the best third-party tool for the Steam Deck. I've done a lot of videos here where I say this is what you should do on your Steam Deck first, right around Christmas, 3 times now actually. And every time, the first thing I tell everyone to do is grab Emudeck, because having access to all these great PS1, PS2, even PS3 games and Super Nintendo and NES, any console you can dream of is available through Emudeck. And it just opens up the Steam Deck to so many more gaming possibilities than what you probably think it can do when you first buy it. So yeah, great upgrades constantly coming to Emudeck. Keep up the great work over there, guys. I really like this service. But yeah, that brings me to the third news story here, which is a few games that recently came out that do work well on the Steam Deck. The first one is Atomfall. Now this is out by the time you're seeing this video. I think it's $50, which means it's a budget game. I've seen it takes around 15 hours, and it's basically, like, from what I can tell, because I personally haven't played it yet, it's downloading right now as I film this. It's like if you took Elden Ring, like the exploration where you don't really know where to go and you just kind of find stuff on the map, and you combine it with Fallout 3. It's supposed to take like 15 hours, and around medium settings, you can get a rock solid 30 FPS or a fluctuating 40 to 45 FPS. So that seems like a great candidate for the Steam Deck, especially considering that it's slower paced combat and exploration. Like, it's a big map, but it's definitely manageable, especially knowing that it only takes 15 hours to beat. The next game I want to highlight is the first Berserker Kazan. A lot of people have been playing the demo for this game on the Steam Deck for hundreds of hours. It just came out and it's getting great reviews, like 8s and 9s across the board. It looks like if you run it at low settings, you can get a rock solid 60 FPS, which leads me to believe that if you ran it at medium or maybe high, you could run it at 30 FPS. I know a lot of people don't like playing these types of games like Souls-likes at 30 FPS, but I've never had a problem with Elden Ring on the Steam Deck, even switching between 30 and 60 on my main PC and the Steam Deck, so I'm assuming it would be the same situation here. I think I'm going to try this game out on a sale. I'm just kind of Souls-liked out at this point. I've got a lot of good games to try, and I am picking up Atomfall, so I want to beat that at least first before I buy another game. And then finally, The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out very soon in April to coincide with the Season 2 launch of the show, and based on the settings list that they've released, it looks like at its low preset, it will be able to pull around 30 FPS. I was initially like rolling my eyes after the experience we had playing The Last of Us Part 1 for a few months on the Steam Deck, but they kicked Iron Galaxy off the ports for Sony games to PC. This one's being handled by their internal studio, Nix's, who is mostly ironclad when it comes to their PC ports. Like, I'm expecting a lot smoother of a launch for The Last of Us Part 2, because on PS Ready, I've talked a lot about this, but there have been rumors for a long time that they've just been sitting on this game's PC port. So hopefully in that time where it's just sitting on the shelf, they've been tinkering away at it, getting it as well optimized as possible for a big launch on PC. But even at low, that's going to be around PS4 settings, which looked really good. It's not going to be anywhere close to what you get out of The Last of Us Part 2 remastered on the PS5, but it's still going to look pretty good. So hopefully the port is up to snuff and a lot better than what we had with The Last of Us Part 1 back in the day. Also, just like a fourth bonus game, Witchfire is getting pretty close to completion, and you can get a rock solid 30 or 40 FPS out of this. If you want to see the exact settings, I highly recommend the channel Santiago. He does regular updates on games, so like he'll test a game, give you the settings at that point in time, and then if he sees it spike on Steam, he'll come back and do another overview. So if there's any game you want to play on Steam Deck, I would bet money that this guy has a video on it. I really like Witchfire. It's very similar to the game I recommended in the last video, Sulfur, but it's kind of its own thing. It's like single player Hunt Showdown, kind of like a little bit different, but very similar to that. So if you're into that witchy sort of colonial horror vibe, I would recommend Witchfire. And the price is going to go up as they update it, so get in now while it's as cheap as it's ever going to be. But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you so much for all the love on this channel. I'm cooking up some bigger stuff behind the scenes that I'm really excited about, some different types of videos. So if you're new here and you're still here at the end of the video, why aren't you subscribed already? Please subscribe and set your notifications to all. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in this one. one. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.